Efficiency Unlocked is hosted by two tech-savvy physicians and dear friends of mine, Doctors Adam Carew and Dale Gold, who are experts in using technology to automate routine tasks and increase efficiency in everyday and business life. Let's see what they have for us today.
Let's get things more consumer-friendly. Make it more like banking and travel and restaurants and Amazon. And I think there's more we can do today. And usually it's change management, not just additional tech.
Dale and I are excited to release this episode. This week's guest is Adam Cherrington, VP of Digital Health and Patient Voice at KLAS Research. Adam leads a team of researchers and analysts who provide insights and guidance to healthcare providers, vendors, and investors on the emerging and evolving trends, challenges, and opportunities in digital health, as well as the new venture for KLAS Research, the Patient Voice.
For me, patient engagement is anything the patient touches and needs to participate in their care, be it a portal, education, CRM tools, communication tools, intake, scheduling. It's a lot of the digital front door type tools. But if we just put our patient hat on, what do you need to participate in care?
We hope you enjoy this episode as we welcome Adam Cherrington to the NerdMD's Efficiency Unlocked podcast. All right, welcome to this week's episode of NerdMD's Efficiency Unlocked. We have a great guest here today, particularly with a wonderful name. We'll get to him in a second live, but wanted to kick it over to Dale here to kickstart us today.
Hey, Adam, how you doing today?
Wait, is this me, Adam, or the other Adam?
You,
Oh,
Adam.
that's me. See, I even slept. No, I'm doing fine. How are you?
Yes, we have a secret Adam in waiting, but he's not on yet. I'm doing great. I have a question for you before we kick it off. Is that all right?
Sure. Fire away.
Tell me this. Is there anything that you think of if you're thinking about ways that you could instantly improve the patient experience in healthcare? Have you ever been a patient yourself?
Yeah, I've definitely been a patient through multiple injuries, I would say, first and foremost. But yeah, what specific question do you have around being a patient?
What do you think could improve the patient experience for you? What's something that you've looked for? I know that you're a consumer of a lot of things that give you a really great experience. What's one of those things that you might point out that you wish was a little bit better in healthcare?
Yeah, I mean, something I always say, and I know you've probably heard me say this, Dale, is I think healthcare needs to learn and emulate a lot from the hospitality industry. If you call up a hotel and they don't have any rooms for you, that's annoying, right? If you call up and they already know you're a member of their hotel and they don't kind of acknowledge that, it's kind of annoying. So I think those two kind of things fit into, personalized kind of care and healthcare and that accessibility piece. I mean, I think those two things are top of mind. You agree with that?
I think that those would be great.
Yeah. Well, it just does happen. We do have an Adam on our show today that is kind of living the life of these types of things and many more, really kind of talking about the patient experience. So Adam Cherrington is the Vice President of Digital Health and Patient Voice at KLAS Research. And we welcome you officially to the show.
Welcome, Adam.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah, no, we're super happy to have you. So go ahead, Dale. Let's kick us into this conversation.
Sure. Adam, why don't you kick us off and tell us a little bit about your journey into healthcare? We love to learn a little bit more about the people first. Can you tell us how you got into health tech and especially what sparked your passion in patient engagement?
Oh, I'd love to. And I just have to acknowledge when the three of us met, he said, "Oh, your name's Adam. So's mine. And this is Dale." And I said, "Oh, that's my middle name." So I feel right at home. Adam, Dale. I've been called that my whole life. So there we go.
We're going to have a lot of editing when we answer the wrong questions today, Adam and Adam.
There you go. And by the way, the CEO of KLAS is Adam Gale, so we can make it even more complicated.
We should have had him on too. That would have been, I've never been on something with three Adams.
I'm known as the other Adam at KLAS, but I embrace that title. So Yeah, so my journey into healthcare technology, I was always passionate about marketing and uh, accidentally found KLAS. I reached out to a buddy that was working and I said, "What do you do? What is KLAS?" And I've been here 12 years now. And so I would say my journey in specifically into patient engagement in this corner of healthcare is number one, I was assigned to it. So at first you're like, well, here you go. This is your thing now. Go figure it out. And the more I got into it, the more passionate I became about it. And it's just been a wonderful journey. It's not hard to see the need and the effort that it's going to take to improve things, because we're all patients. And I was doing clinical decision support and some other things before, which are important in healthcare, but it's easier to tell my kids, yeah, I help with the patient experience. Uh, that got me excited, and so that's the original entry point. But the passion became the passion came from just the personal experiences that all of us have, and I'll share I'll share two from my own life and experience. As my grandmother was aging, she would go to one doctor and they would change her meds, and she would just spiral, and things would just get worse at times. And then go back to another doctor and they would tweak something, and then things would improve or not. And once my father, named Dale, by the way, once he sat down and started documenting this and controlled it and shared that information with all the clinicians, that's what it took to get her to stabilize and improve. So that's the first one. The second one is, uh, rewind back to December of 2012. My wife was diagnosed with stage 1 breast cancer. And this is a happy story because she's doing great. It's in the rearview mirror. We received great care. But the way that went down was so painful. And here's what I mean. We got a call on a Friday night, literally like 6 p.m. on a Friday night, uh, 6 days before Christmas, saying, "You have infiltrating ductile carcinoma. Do you have any questions?" That's how we found out. And they said, "Oh, and you have an appointment with a surgeon in 8 days." And to get that kind of news with such little information, such little access to any help, uh, just rocked our world. And that was the worst part of that cancer journey for us. Just the fear of the unknown and not having any information related to that. We were given multiple options in the same health system of chemotherapy, and the best advice we were given, well, not the best, but the only advice we were given is, okay, you just need to pick one of these options and never look back, never question your decision, and just do it. I'm like, am I picking a set of Legos, or what are we doing here? And I even called a family member that's a clinician, and he said, you know what, that's probably as much as you're going to get. You just have to go with your gut. So all of a sudden, these life altering experiences hit you between the eyes and say, is this really the best we can do? So taking that and into my KLAS career, I immediately said, there's opportunities here. We can do more to make it easier for patients. And I'm going to say a lot about healthcare and how challenging it is today, but I want to acknowledge up front how hard it is, how complex it is, and how providers, vendors, even payers, and those that are touching all of our lives, uh, you have to be in it because you love healthcare. It's just so crazy hard. And so I want to thank both of you for what you do. It is hard. It is absolutely hard and frustrating. And so even if I'm sharing tons of painful moments and hopefully more suggestions than pain, I acknowledge how complex it is and how good healthcare is. So there you go.
No, thanks. I mean, those are really powerful examples, and I think it's always a good reminder, to me as a physician, to hear any of those stories to kind of help me think through, how how everything has an impact, and how the experience is just so tied, and that's why I thought it'd be great to have you on this show because I always think that we talk about the provider experience and the patient experience, and I just think that connecting all those experiences is really what's best for everybody. Is to have the patient and provider be one healthcare experience, just like you talked about the complexity. That's a complexity in itself is that we separate all these experiences out and we don't have them unified. Hopefully, we will. And before we dive more into that, can you give our audience and listeners a better sense about Adam and I obviously are big followers of KLAS and have followed that for years, not as long as you, which is probably another interesting conversation to see how that's changed. But before we go into any of that, what is KLAS? What is that? Help people understand big picture what it is and the mission.
KLAS is an independent research and consulting firm dedicated to improve healthcare. A very mission-based company. We are for profit, but our entire purpose is to make sure that we are sharing insights that improve healthcare ultimately. And that is our North Star. That's what we talk about in nearly every meeting. Are we doing things that can improve healthcare? So the quick comparison is a JD Power and Associates. JD Power interviews actual customers, collects ratings, and then publishes those ratings for the purpose of helping consumers make good decisions. They're known for their awards, and KLAS is also known for awards. The Best in Class awards you'll see promoted throughout healthcare IT. So we have been around 28 years. We will conduct 25,000 plus interviews every year. And we're entirely focused on healthcare. And so KLAS started from our founder, Kent Gale, who was working for a lab company. And he was trying to take care of his customers in a marketing and sales role. And all of a sudden, leadership said, okay, we need to get rid of a lot of the support team to add to the bottom line so we can go public and look great. Well, Kent really got annoyed at that because he had just made all these commitments to his customers and now the rug was about to be pulled out from underneath them. And so he got the idea that we need to measure this kind of thing. We need to help healthcare by adding a layer of transparency. What is the true experience of a healthcare customer? So thus the idea of KLAS was born. He reached out to some provider friends, faxed over 150 question survey, took them hours to fill out. They filled it out, sent it back, and said, "Don't ever ask me to do that again. That's way too long." But it was born. It started, and it's evolved from that to we're worldwide. We've had multiple global summits this year. We have an EHR optimization collaborative. We have a payer provider collaborative, meaning how do we highlight what's working in those areas? I think it's real easy to have a conference or summit about let's talk about how hard healthcare is. That's not who we are. We want to bring together ideas that are working. So yeah, KLAS is originally an acronym of the founders, Kent, Leonard, Adam, and Scott. I am not that Adam. I'm the other Adam. But it's just been an amazing journey, to go from an idea in Kent Gale's head to working with the DoD to make sure that American healthcare is improved and healthcare initiatives across multiple countries call this little company in Pleasant Grove, Utah, and says we need you to guide us. So those are some of the extreme examples, all the way down to here's a single doc practice that needs help, and we can give them one of our reports. That's the average is somewhere in the middle, right, of what we normally do. But that's KLAS, and it's been a wonderful journey.
No, that's a great summary. Can you tell us a little bit about, your specific focus? I know we talked a little bit about your intro, but help people understand. I know that, I'm really interested in what you're working on as sort of a newer area of what KLAS is focused on. But how would you summarize it?
So my specific role is vice president over digital health and patient voice, and so with the rise of patient engagement as it relates to the quadruple aim, uh, morphing into the quintuple aim, we could go into that, but the the need to involve patients continues to check all those boxes. Let's help patients have a better experience. Let's reduce costs. Let's improve the clinician experience. Let's improve outcomes, et cetera. So, patient engagement just continues to be at the forefront, and it makes sense. It makes sense. I think we're evolving. We're in more mature phases, but that's where I focus. And when I first started, it became anything that has the word patient in it. We'll call it patient engagement. And, quite frankly, that's been one of the challenges. We call it so many different things. I had a vendor today say, oh, yeah, part of our patient engagement strategy is an HIE. I said, okay, well, that's important, but does a patient touch that directly? Maybe indirectly. But just that one example can show how there's definitions all over the place. So we've gone from that to there's multiple categories that we rate. There's many reports we'll publish on emerging technologies. For me, patient engagement is anything the patient touches and needs to participate in their care, be it a portal, education, CRM tools, communication tools, intake, scheduling. It's a lot of the digital front door type tools. But if we just put our patient hat on, what do you need to participate in care? Payment tools, etc. So that's the corner of KLAS that I lead. We're also leading up a new collaborative called the Patient Voice Collaborative, and I'll share some insights as we go on that. I know we're going to get into that in a moment, but essentially, we're including the voice of the patient and their perspective on healthcare IT. And that's something that's unique and new that we're doing.
No, it's awesome. I think it's really exciting, and at the same time, as I want to say that it's forward thinking to be going this direction, but we probably shouldn't be saying that about caring about the patient's experience being forward thinking in healthcare. But I think I want to dive more into how it all works, because I think it's like you said, it's sort of this concept of patient experience, whereas I think you're taking action on it, which I think is interesting. But let me kick it over to other Adam, co-host Adam, for a second. And I think you've got a couple questions lined up.
Yeah, this is host Adam now. But no, I mean, I just learned a couple things there. I had no idea. I never knew what the acronym came from. So thanks for teaching me that. And I'm glad at least my name is in that acronym too, which is super cool. And, I think the other thing I wanted to mention is, I think Dale's probably participated in these too, but we've participated in KLAS surveys, because we use vendor products, as a part of our clinical care. And honestly, it's been cool to go through that. I mean, yeah, like you said, the old school way was like some sort of form that was faxed, and now it's an online survey. But it's not super hard to do, and it provides that real good value back, to the overall community. Because I'll say, as a CMIO, I mean, it's hard to know, what product to try. We don't know. I mean, you go to the website, you get a demo, you get a sales pitch, and I know we're focusing on the patient engagement side here, but I think that too, patients don't know, some of these things. So I would love to, we like to go kind of under the hood as we dive in these shows. And can you kind of specifically walk us through how KLAS collaborates in this way with, healthcare organizations and the vendors to improve that patient engagement piece?
Yeah, absolutely. I love the question. So, I'll give you an example. I talked to a chief digital officer this morning, and my number one goal in that conversation was to ask what they need. What are they working on? And it helps me to know what are the trends are, what's top of mind. And our first goal is always to help with any of their initiatives. Be it maybe they're not shopping for something, maybe they just need to know, hey, obviously everyone's talking about AI. What does KLAS know about it? And I can share that type of report. And if that's all we accomplish on the call, that's great. Mission accomplished. Maybe we didn't get data, meaning have that provider rate something to feed the mission in the database. But often that's the case. We do both. So for an organization, it's a one-on-one interview most of the time. Yes, we do some online surveys, but that's really where the relationship comes in, where we can say, hey, what are you specifically trying to solve, and can we support you? And to provider friends listening, that door is always open. Uh, you can reach out even if you don't have a KLAS relationship today and say, I just need some help. Do you have anything on A, B, and C? Hopefully we do. Often we do. We don't always have everything, but that's okay. So that puts us in a unique position where we can point to conversations that we've had. I can look any CEO in the eye in the world and say, I know this is an issue because I talked to your customer yesterday about this. And so we hope that it's impactful and helpful. So that's the provider side. That's where we get a lot of our information. It's the number one principle at KLAS. Everything we do has to help the provider. And I'm on a personal crusade to add the word patient to that as well. So I have a petition I'd like you both to sign after we're done today. But that's the first part. The second part is obviously the vendor community is part of this discussion. And I am so thankful for the many vendor partners I've got to know over the years. Again, they're in an industry that's challenging. It's the same industry, right? They're in a position that's challenging, just like for providers. And so, if we can guide vendors to say, here's how you can get better, here's what you can do to impact your own customers and improve healthcare, because we see KLAS has a role in that. Providers, payers, vendors, we all have a role to play to improve healthcare. So we do a lot of consulting. We do a lot of sharing of insights. We try to be abundant to anyone that needs it. Yes, a lot of our revenue comes from vendors that want access to the information, but it's always an option to be rated by KLAS without being required to invest in KLAS, if that makes sense. Our data is more helpful and impactful if we have every viable player measured in it, whether they have a business relationship with us or not. So there you go. There's your peek behind the curtains of how it all can work. And hopefully,
no, I love that. I mean, can you go, I guess, a little more into, I think when we met you out in California at that conference this summer, I think we were chatting about how, KLAS has always, interviewed providers. They've obviously interviewed vendors. But I mean, now you're getting into the space where you're actually interviewing kind of the patients, right, that are taking this. Can you share a bit about that?
Absolutely. So this is slightly different than what we've done in the past, in the form of patients are not rating vendors like we ask you providers to do so. We are asking them about their needs, their preferences, their loyalty to a health system based on the technology. We're not trying to capture experience and get into caps or anything like that. But with the idea that let me go back and I'll tell you how it kind of came together. So we started just on a social media blitz asking patients at large, hey, fill out this short survey. And we looked at results of things like, hey, what technologies are you using? What do you wish you could use? And comparing that with what we already had collected from dozens and dozens, if not hundreds of providers, and then looking at what the vendor community was offering, all of a sudden we've got 3 different stakeholders that have different priorities. And that's when we knew we were onto something. We could see that there were visible differences on different technologies. Um, and so we started to, we found 4 health systems that wanted to be a part of this early stage of interviewing patients. And I'm going to give them a shout out because they were courageous and raised their hand and said, hey, we'll be vulnerable. It was Alameda Health System out in the Bay Area, University of Kansas Health System, Indiana University, and Baptist Jacksonville. And they raised their hands and said, okay, we'll participate and listen to the insights. So we went out, interviewed patients in the form of, here's a survey. It was sent through the portal, or others chose an email. Luckily, KLAS didn't touch any of the information, so we didn't have to worry about PHI. And we got data so quickly. Patients were willing to at least participate, and we were able to start comparing across these health systems. And that's kind of the vision of this collaborative. Imagine if we had, hundreds of different health systems, and we could say, hey, you're in the 80th percentile on patient self-scheduling. Let's learn what you're doing and let's share that abundantly with others. Or you're in the 12th percentile of communications. Here's some best practices you could use to get better. That's the vision. So we want to help an individual health system make good decisions based on the insights of their own patients, number one. Number two, we want to benchmark across different organizations so they can, these provider groups can understand how they're performing. And number three, we want to capture best practices and liberally share them. We think that fits the KLAS model extremely well, which is the mission to improve healthcare. And we think there will be some new insights there. So that's my passion. That's what I'm working on these days, and it's just been such a treat to start to uncover some learnings there. If I can, I'll share one example. We learned early on that lower educated patients, because we got demographic information, and patients speaking a language other than English, often they were rating the technology differently, even higher in some cases. And that really surprised us. And what we started to learn, and the example is telehealth. Patients were saying, this is essential. It's in my language. I don't have to take time off work. And now we can start to use some of that data to challenge some assumptions, to say, hey, we can't just go into a meeting and say, patients won't use that, or they will love this. Older patients don't use technology anymore. I don't believe it. I've got data to show that that's going away, that sentiment. So, this patient voice collaborative is really opening our own eyes, and we're excited to share that with anybody that's interested.
I love this. And there were so many things you just said there that I think Dale and I could probably talk for the next half hour on, but I'll just reflect and double click on a couple things. I mean, one was, you mentioned, your guys are uncovering this like demographic differences between, the consumers or patients of healthcare, whatever you want to call it. I mean, we're doctors, so we usually refer to it as patients. But I think it is fascinating because I don't think a lot of people know this necessarily, but I've been like a virtualist clinician for the last 6+ years, and I only interact with people in a digital space. This office that we're recording this podcast in right now is my home office, where I also do clinical care, just on a monitor that's over that way. But I just think it's true. I mean, I think you'll hear all sorts of things like, and I guess I particularly work on like a text-based kind of telehealth, like in real time, and it's like I don't actually get the patient's demographics like right at the beginning of when they come into my queue, but and sometimes I'm having a conversation with them and I start even making some assumptions about how old they are or whatever. And then I open up their chart and I'm like, oh gosh, like, this is a 78-year-old that's just chatting it up with me, about their concern. And so, no, I love that you guys are doing this. I mean, I think this is so needed, and I totally agree with you, that it aligns so well with the other initiatives that KLAS has been a part of. So, I mean, I think, Dale, why don't we pass it back to you to go over kind of some of this next kind of group of questions. Just want to be mindful of time for everyone too.
Yeah. No, I mean, the other thing that you talked a little bit about some of that data. I mean, I think of myself on an organization that wants to take good care of their patients and, be leading the area of that space, to have the benchmarking available to understand, where we can lead, where, we need to make sure that we're investing in digital patient experience space. It can be really helpful. I don't think that we often have the visibility that you described to be able to compare, openly, what our offerings are and how they compare to others, because it's certainly a priority for us. But sometimes that data is not there. Has there been specific, data that you could share so far that's really had an impact on the community that you've discovered?
Absolutely. So, just these early four organizations, there were general trends among all four, and these were different provider types. They were different organizations, some academic, health centers, et cetera. But some trends, patients rating things higher, like wayfinding tools and prescription refill requests. As cool as the technology is, patients want access. They want simplified tools that just make it easy to participate. Um, even post visit communication, there was some good appreciation and higher ratings of that. Um, and then on the lower end of the spectrum, self scheduling. Patients saying, I just really want to just schedule this. I can reserve a table at any restaurant for tonight in about 30 seconds, but to get my own doctor who knows me, and I'm gonna poke at the industry a little bit, not at you, Adam and Dale, but
You can poke away.
my doctor my doctor that knows me, I called to make an appointment. They didn't pick up, so I went back to work. Now, to their credit, they texted me. They said, "Hey, we saw that you just called. We would love to help you." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, this is great." I said, "I'm just trying to book an appointment." "Oh, we don't do that, because by the time you got back to us, the appointment might be gone. You just need to call us." And I'm like, "Okay, we're back in the loop." Guess what? I didn't go. My wife found someone else. I didn't go to my own doctor for something I was trying to engage in. So self scheduling is a big one. So even among these four organizations, we saw patients rate that slightly lower and say, "Gal, it's just not meeting my needs as good as I would expect." Some other data. Obviously, when we asked, "Hey, what have you done online or with an app?" The lowest scoring one is price transparency. Obviously, as an industry, we haven't figured that out. Even patient education scored lower, and that one, we've got to be careful saying, "Hey, patients don't want that." That's not the message. I believe the way we deliver some of those type of tools does not help the patient in the way they need it. I think it's draped with legalese, and it's cumbersome, and it's in a format that's not always convenient. So patients say, "Yeah, it's just not that helpful." Doesn't mean they don't want to be educated. So, we're just at the very beginning of what does this mean, and how can we elevate these things? How can we make sure that self scheduling is uh, solvable? Really, I think it's solvable. The tech is there. This is not a technology gap. This is a change management gap.
I don't know the timeline of those organizations that went first and were engaged in this, but have you seen any outcomes in those organizations where this has driven some improvements in these areas? Like, has this helped those organizations take action on some of these specific spaces, or too early to tell?
The there's 2 points of evidence that it's working, but it is a little bit early, so I won't overstate this. One is months later when we got these four back together, and it truly is a collaborative. How can they share with each other? They were sharing all kinds of experiences. Hey, we're creating a dashboard to make sure we get good at this. We are having deeper conversations with patient family advisory councils, the PFACs. There's example one. Number two is one of these health systems it, took this information into their meetings where they're making decisions about what tech to choose next, and they said we know that scheduling is a huge priority, and they've actually pivoted their strategy to advance that up on the to-do list. So I count that as a win. That if we did nothing else, we've helped at least one health system align better with their patients.
Yeah, that's a great example.
Yeah, I love it. I think for kind of like the final kind of set of question maybe to ask you, Adam, is let's look into the future a little bit. Dale and I think with every guest, we try to crystal ball it a little bit and just kind of spitball what we think could be, the future in this space. So, do you have any kind of, it could be a wish or a dream or something that you think will actually come to fruition, that's like forward thinking and how fixing healthcare in this kind of realm of the patient at the center and the patient experience?
This is more of a dream and a wish, and I think we'll get there eventually. But we've got to make the data interoperable. We've got to make it so it's not that hard to go from your primary care provider to a surgeon to post op whatever. It's so hard right now, as we all know. But that's my number one. Get the patient data usable and interoperable. Um, and we've got to have better ways, and I think we're getting there, but better ways to know me as a patient. Um, a flick of the wrist at Disney World, they know me. They know who I am. They've charged me. They know my history. They know my patterns. They know my family. Probably know my credit score. It's out there. The technology's there. This is change management. Here's another wish. Wouldn't it be cool if the employer worked with the payer and the provider even more tightly aligned? Why do I have to get my info from my employer and understand the payer and take it to my provider and then they have to validate it? Wouldn't it be amazing to walk in and my provider says your information is updated? We're part of that conversation. I'm waving a magic wand here a little bit, but it just seems like there's a path there. Um, I think we can really challenge assumptions by including the patient. Okay, and here's another assumption. Um, we believe that not everyone uses a smartphone, and that's true, but it's shrinking. In fact, I was at a conference in Denver, walking to a restaurant, and I passed a homeless man with a smartphone, and it just rocked my world. I said, "Wow, I would not have assumed that." But things like that, we have to acknowledge there's gaps in digital literacy. There is that's really true, but we need to solve what we can. Um, let's solve the language barriers. Let's have interpreters ready to go for the deaf community. And we do. I know there's things in place there, but there's things we can solve, and I think we need to not be paralyzed by thinking, well, if we can't fix the whole system, we just will continue to do what we've always done. We'll continue to ask patients to fax things in. Why are we doing that? My daughter in her early 20s messaged me and said my provider just asked me to fax something. What should I say to them? And I said, ask them what a fax machine is and go from there. But those are some of the things I'd like to see. Let's get things more consumer friendly. make it more like banking and travel and restaurants and Amazon. And I think there's more we can do today. And usually it's change management, not just additional tech.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, in that last sentence you just said is, I think, what Dale and I talk about all the time is like, why can't this portal be just as good as like my banking app? It's, or booking a flight or booking any travel, or, frankly, all those things that we are accustomed to. And so I love those goalposts and those kind of wishes that you just outlaid. I mean, those are things we have to continue to push for, and I think we will. Healthcare, like you said, is complex, but it's, if you keep pushing for that, and consumers and patients will continue to demand it as well. So, no, spot on. Well, we've talked for about 40 minutes, which is excellent. But I think what we should do now is we should probably pivot into the favorite part of the show for me and Dale, is the nerd alert round. Are you nerdy enough to tackle these questions?
Let's find out. Let's go for it.
All right. I did these in kind of a sequence where they're going to like start like kind of pretty basic, and then maybe they get a little bit more complex, but they're all fun. And frankly, if you don't want one, just pass, hit the buzzer. So first one, Chinese takeout or pizza delivery?
Ooh, let's go Chinese takeout. Love some good Chinese food. Love it.
Awesome. Yeah, I'd probably agree with that too, especially when it's really good. Along those lines, what's your favorite kind of cuisine?
Boy, I'm gonna group it into breakfast. I love a good breakfast. Sitting in a diner in a city I'm visiting with my family, that's good times right there. If you've ever been to Ruby's out on Huntington Beach Pier and you're eating the French toast, watching the sun, watching the surfers, and that's a good time. I love to make breakfast too, so I'll say breakfast.
Sweet. Well, if we ever hook up with you, we're definitely going to meet up for breakfast. We know that now.
There you go.
Awesome. All right, shifting gears to time travel. Okay, but it's a fairly easy one. If you could time travel, would you prefer to go back to something or go forward to something?
I'm always looking back, and so I would say in the past. Yeah, I'm constantly still listening to good '80s music. I love good music, any good music, but boy, it's '80s music. Name that tune. That's what we love to do in the car. So I'm probably going back.
Yeah, we always play those, like what my kids would call old music, which was really from the '80s, which is, for the record, not old. But yeah, and it will always be like, I'm like, who is this? I was like, we've done this one before, and they're like, we have no idea. It's super fun.
I love when there's a new quote unquote new song on TikTok and I start singing along and my kids are flabbergasted. How do you know this? And I'm like, this is 40 years old. This is not new.
Yeah. Yep. I love it when they come back and kind of resurface in a more modern time. What's the favorite way for you to relax after like a long day?
Boy, that's a good one. Love sports, love to just hang out with family and friends. I probably have a Coke Zero with a lime in my hand. Um, just, hanging out with the family. That is relaxing to me. And um, if I'm the ultimate relaxation would be down at Lake Powell, Southern Utah. If you're not familiar, think of the Grand Canyon half full of water, just red rock beauty. You got some Coldplay playing and it's bouncing off the canyon walls. That's a little piece of heaven for me right
That
there.
sounds marvelous. Now, I guess this could go back to the 80s or you could pick wherever, but if you could live in a live TV show, like something from your past or current, which one would it be?
Oh boy. I don't know how chaotic it would be, but I just love Parks and Rec. My goodness.
That's a
Um,
great show.
I, yeah, I guess I would choose Parks and Rec. I don't know what role I'd like to play, but I would probably be highly
Oh, it'd be a
entertained if
definite
I
fun
was in
crew.
that role.
Yeah. My daughter's currently binge watch. She's 12, which now that I'm saying this, you probably shouldn't be watching the show, but she's watching all the Modern Families, which for the most part, Modern Family is like totally okay. And then every once in a while there's a topic on there and I'm like, do you know what they're talking about? When I catch wind of it in the background. But no,
that's a good one as well. Modern Family's entertaining.
Yeah, great show. I mean, what is your favorite thing about your job?
I love to help organizations be successful. I love that what we do is impacting healthcare and ultimately all of us as patients. And that's a very broad answer, but it is so rewarding to walk out of a hospital and I just helped somebody. We don't get to do that as often as we used to. We kind of, it's mostly virtual, and that's because of the pandemic. All of that slowed down quickly, but walking out of a vendor partners building and having shared meaningful insights that we know will help them. And when they listen and say, boy, this is stuff we never would have understood had you not come, boy, we're just floating all the way home. It's, when you can do something you love that's making an impact, it's not work anymore. It's just fun. And so that's what I would say.
No, I love that. I mean, that's the impetus for Dale and I doing this podcast. It's like we wanted to have conversations with people that hopefully somebody listening, would get something out. And so hopefully there's lots of those for this episode as well. Now, this is kind of funny. I used to always ask, what's your favorite book that you recently read? I'll say we had some younger people on our podcast in the past, younger than all of us. And sometimes they'll say, well, I don't read books. Like, I watch YouTube to learn, or I, read this blog or Substack or whatever. But do you have either a favorite book or a podcast that you'd be willing to share that you like?
Well, I'll tell you what I'm reading right now. Here on my desk, to go back to the 80s music, Surrender by Bono of U2. Very entertaining. I'm a big fan of U2. One of my great colleagues, Jen Munson, gave me a copy of this, and kind of dives into not only the history of each song that he's talking about, but a lot of the political climate and biography of the band. And so I don't know how inspirational that is, but you know what? That's what I'm reading right now, and it's pretty entertaining.
No, I love it. That's a great suggestion. Have you were you able to catch U2 at the Sphere in Vegas at all when they?
Not there, but I have seen them multiple times before.
Great.
And I even took my two oldest kids with me to a concert once. I said, okay, you will remember this. You're going to see U2. And so I have seen them before. And yeah, they're one of those bands that's better live, I would say. Yeah. There's some that are worse live. U2 is better live.
Yeah, my wife's a huge Dave Matthews Band fan, and I don't particularly love the music, but I will say going to concerts with her, it's like very, very good. Like it sounds way better than it does, in the car. So no, that's awesome. Well, Adam, thank you for spending the last 48 plus minutes with us today. Really appreciate, you sharing what KLAS is doing and what you're doing, in this, I would call it, I guess, the evolution of KLAS, kind of the further expansion.
Thanks, guys. It's been a treat to be with you, and I appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to Efficiency Unlocked, Nerd Tested, MD Approved, a Nerd MD's podcast by Drs. Adam Carew and Dale Gold.